everyone, this is Seeking Sister Wife Season 3, Episode 8, Full House. Funny little story, the weirdo from the serial killer is not in this episode, and I spent the whole episode going, what couple is missing? Why don't I remember this? Why is this? But this is sort of all of the, everything going wah wah is essentially what I got out of this.
So boring.
Well, the thing that could have been interesting, because they weren't filming, we didn't really see. We heard about, but we didn't see. So that's the Snowdens. From what I'm hearing sort of in the comments, and I don't do a lot of offline research, so I like to react to the show. The allegations against Dimitri are true. The allegations against Ashley, what I'm hearing is multiple places kind of confirming it, but we're not there yet. And the interesting thing was about Taylor leaving is that if we could have actually seen some of these conflicts between her and Ashley, that might have been really interesting. But instead, all we do is we hear about it in sort of the past tense. Weird takeaway though, the beginning, Dimitri goes, because I guess the lockdown in LA started like the day after Chrissy and her family arrived from South Africa. And he's like, I know a lot of monogamous men were probably really upset to be locked at home with their wife, but for me it was a pleasure. And I was like, what do these people think?
Well, I think it's
monogamous
okay to smack his bitch up, so.
Well, I mean, he's got a lot of problems going on, but apparently
plus
the
he's
idea
a felon
is,
with firearms.
According to the articles we read, we should say according to the article that I read to John, that was it. That's all in reference to the there's like apparently a video from their first wife prior to Seeking Sister Wife. So not oh, I wrote Vanessa.
Yeah.
Not anyway. But yeah, I was like, this is the idea. These polygamous men all have this issue that seem to think that, like, I don't know whether they're saying that they would hate to be stuck with one person, and so it's a nightmare to them, or whether they think monogamous men don't like their wife. I don't really know. I don't know what that says about Ashley, that he makes it seem like if he was stuck with her, it would have been terrible. Anyway, after 2 months, they all did the diet. They were all having sex together. I mean, sorry.
Or whatever.
Whatever they do. They haven't really been, a lot of the couples are really vocal about how this works. They haven't been nearly as vocal, so I don't know their relationship. But anyway, he's having sex with all 3 women. 9 people. This is where I made the comment earlier, like, how big is their house? Because 9 people would be, we actually have a somewhat reasonably big house. We live out in the country. My mother-in-law lives with us, has her own little section. It would be wildly uncomfortable with 9 people. So I can't imagine their house is that much better. Anyway, Taylor kind of goes, hey, I'm going to go visit my mom, and disappears. And they're like, we don't really know what that means. I'll tell you what it means. If all of her stuff went with her,
here's your sign.
You know what it was. If she didn't take all her stuff. Now, admittedly, what it sounds like is she came for a short visit, so she doesn't really have that much stuff to begin with. But like, if she took the plant that she bought or whatever, like, but it's got to be pretty clear. We hear about this, mostly what we hear is that Taylor and Ashley had a lot of head-to-head confrontations, which does not surprise me in a bit. But Chrissy and Ashley were really close. They have like one video of Ashley and Chrissy like outside talking about how difficult it is. There was some analogy about a mirror in your butt. I didn't understand what that was. You didn't even hear it. Our 4-year-old was playing video games and John was about to lose his mind. And so we were a little spotty. But I was like, so anyway, so she packs up and leaves, and after a couple weeks he calls her. I was like, well, I really wish she would have talked about it. And I thought, the fact that she didn't tells you everything you need to know. There was nothing in this call that makes it seem like, oh, I really wish we had talked. It was very clearly like, your dick's not good enough for this hassle. Like, I don't know what you think you're offering me, but this is not it. This is not enough.
Apparently DoorDash driving.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we get to hear a little bit more about his business, and apparently he went from having
it sucks.
Multiple businesses, clients, to delivering groceries like instantly, and I was like, ooh, that is not a good sign for how your family budget is working.
I guess when you're into Dogecoin, or whatever it's called.
Doggy coin?
Yeah, doggy coin. Is it doggy coin?
I think it's doggy coin, isn't it?
I don't know.
Dogecoin. I was like, what is it, a new karate themed one? What's going on?
There's so many poop coins. I can't keep up.
Anyway, we got a cryptocurrency, kind of a joke in the house. Anyway, she left. He FaceTimes her. She's kind of like, oh, well. And then he comes back and he's like, I really wish she would have talked about it. And then they're like, then Chrissy's like, well, it just seemed like no matter how much you tried to accommodate her, you couldn't do enough. And I thought, I wonder, in retrospect, if she's not like, I should have gotten out. So good for Taylor. Sometimes like a little bit of this flightiness is healthy for you because you just zoom out of stuff when red flags start showing up. Anyway, let's go over to the magician and Tasha. So he's been talking to someone named Alexandra who looks beautiful. Somehow he has this long rambling explanation where he equates polygamy with anti-capitalism, and I was like, well, very 2021, but I'm not buying it. There's no amount of positive social programs that I'm gonna want to have socialism in regards to my sexual relationship with my husband. Like, there's a lot of things I'm willing to do. Like, what were the other ones where they were like, if a woman had needs, I would give her, I think that was Taylor who said that, if a woman was in need, I would offer, and if she's lonely, I'd offer her my husband. And I'm like, okay.
Just pass the penis.
Just, penises for all. But it's only your penis that everyone gets. Anyway,
No thanks.
I was like, you are not slick talking me into believing that polygamy is anti-capitalism. This doesn't make any sense. And this is what's funny. So we were watching this, and he goes, yeah, so polygamy is anti-capitalist. And then John goes, I could get into this. And I go, excuse me? And I look over and he's on his phone. And he's like, he's reading some article about something.
Completely nothing to do with this.
Nothing to do with what he's doing. But I was like, excuse me, sir? What is going on over there? And then he's like, what? And I'm like, pause it. And I'm like, he just said that it's anti-capitalist, and you were like, oh, I can get into this. And you're like, oh, no, this. And it's like, well, thank you for joining me for the recap. But I did tell him he doesn't have to pay too much attention. That's sort of our rule. Like, he'll keep doing these shows as long as he only has to watch like 15%. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, they're on this date with this girl, Alexandra. And I'm like, they're like, well, I just don't know. She talks about being gone, and she's not, maybe she won't be enough involved in the family. And I'm like, what is going on with you people? First it was the Joneses and Gerard being like, you're not spending enough time with the family. I'm like, this is like some weird, it's not surprising that it's got some weird cult language to it because a lot of them are in cults, and I think but anyway, I was like...
it really did sound like they wanted an indentured servant.
It's kind of how most of them have sounded. They have not, the Mormon polygamists are the ones, is he crying?
I don't know.
I think he's having fun. Are the only ones so far who sound like they're actually looking for people and not like, who's going to work around the house. Like, this is the kind of conversation you have about a housekeeper. Well, she's going to be traveling a lot. I don't know if we want to hire her. So anyway, they're going to travel. And then my other thought was, if any kind of relationship would be okay with long periods of one of the partners being gone, you'd think it's the one who has a spare partner in the wings at all time. Which just says a lot about like how they just want her to start popping out babies. And I guess Tasha doesn't want to do it, so they're trying to find someone who does. Anyway, she's going to go on a date. She might be gone a lot. Oh, I have this note in the wrong spot. We're back to Taylor, so we'll ignore that. Anyway, in the preview, they show her going, and they go on a date to the psychic, and the psychic's like, I see a lot of chemistry. And they're like, ooh. And I possibly see 3 kids. And she's like, It's just so weird. It is weird to me, additionally, how much all of these couples talk about just polygamy. Like when John and I went on a date, that blessed night at the melting pot. Don't you roll your eyes at me? Just so you know, he told me after our first date that he almost didn't ask me in a second because I was so much out of his league. And that's such a total line, but it was a really good one. And it totally worked. Anyway.
It was the truth.
Anyway, we talked about other stuff. We talked about what we like doing, our interests. Even stuff that kind of hints at a relationship, like the fact that we both one day wanted to live someplace where we could have lots of space. And that neither one of us are crazy about sports like football, basketball, hockey, watching them, but both of us enjoy competitive stuff. You know, like, so you have those kind of conversations. We didn't just have conversations exclusively about the nature of the kind of relationship we want to be in, which is what these polygamy families do. And I'm like, it's like they're not even, like, it's not even dating sometimes. And that's probably why Dimitri keeps getting women, is he's the only one who seems to occasionally at least take people on a date and not just discuss polygamy. Anyway, the Joneses, Gerard, Kayla is gone, so gone. Random friend shows up. They're in a car club together, but she didn't seem... I say car club together. By all means, women can know things about cars. But she comes over...
She clearly didn't.
But to me, it seemed like either she was playing it up for the camera. This is something where they were like, hey, we're filming the show. You said one time you were into... You thought what was interesting. Any chance you want to be in the show and pretend to be a potential sister wife? Like, either that, in which case she's like... Oh, okay, and just making stuff up, which is totally believable. I admit that if I could be on a reality show, I didn't have to date some weird guy. I've asked John to do The Amazing Race with me. Survivor. He told me I wouldn't be very good. I'd be the crier, and no one likes the crier. Anyway, that's absolutely true. Anyway, she comes over. She's like, oh, so I heard about polygamy. And he's like, oh, are you interested? And she's like, yeah, I think I'd like to know more about it. Not really buying any of it, but whatever. We'll see where it's going. It doesn't seem any more real or fake than the rest of the show. And then the Winders.
Fair enough.
Kimberly shows up. He keeps saying, this is my excited face. I still not buy it.
This is my excited face.
I am not buying that he is in the slightest bit interested in her. He's being very respectful about it. Like, he's not like, oh, dude, there's no way I could be into this girl over here. He is being very much like, well, she is beautiful, and there's more to attraction than just initial looks. And I'm like, just
because there ain't that with him.
Well, he just seems there's no part of the way he's talking to her that sounds like he's genuinely interested. And he told his wife, and he was like, there's just really no spark. I don't know if this is the right time. And I feel bad. Now, to be fair, I would feel worse for her, but she doesn't seem to have any interest in him either, other than the concept of him perhaps being interested. You know, like, I mean, maybe they're always the most boring people on earth, but when I used to be interested in men, as in dating, because I'm very interested in my husband, but like if someone says, like, what do you like, John? I'd be like, oh my gosh, he's so funny. We have these great conversations. He always makes me laugh. He always has something unexpected. When we fight, he always tells me how wrong he is afterwards.
Whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't sound like...
You do apologize. You're very good at apologizing.
When I'm wrong, which is not all the time.
No, but a lot of people can never admit that they were wrong, and they never apologize. My family. But my point is, I can tell you forever. Even when I first met him, and it was like our first date, I was a teacher at the time. No one really cares, but I'm going to tell you this anyway, because I was a teacher at a time, and my TAs, who were also college students, we loved to hear my dating stories because they were so disastrous. They were so terrible. And they knew right off the bat that John was one of the good ones. And they always liked him. And they still, in fact, that crew of TAs that I had back then, I still talk to many of them. Some of them, several of them were men, they still talk to John. But they always knew that he was different because it wasn't just like, I mean, it was a little bit of, both of our first reactions was like, this person's not insane, which already puts him above 99% of all the people we're encountering. But it was like, oh, this is someone who's interesting. None of that. I'm just not seeing any of that with the Winders. And he does genuinely seem to love both wives, love his kids. He doesn't actually seem to want a third wife. And so I just feel like going, ladies, I mean, I guess you can't be on the show if you're not seeking a sister wife. But I mean, he does seem to be, and he's being as respectful as possible. So how was your flight? Tell me where you live. But there is, and then the other funny thing is they filmed it. He's like in a rocking chair over here, and then way across the room, look at how far away that looks on the camera, is like the two wives, the baby, and they're as far away as you can get. And he's like, so,
They wouldn't
how was your
want to
flight?
accidentally you know, cross lines and hold hands or anything.
Well, but the other funny thing is, even when they meet, the girls are like, oh, big squeezy hug. Oh, I'm so excited to see you. I'm so excited you're here. Oh, I'm so excited. And then it's like, hello, sir. And a side hug. Now, I know the side hug is very much an appropriate, this is how you hug women that you're not married to. But it did feel like, even for a side hug, it felt like it was screaming platonic. Like, I don't think this is happening. I don't think he's interested. I don't even think that she's that interested in him. Anyway, that's the Winders. Who knew the Winders would end up being the most interesting ones to talk about? Because they're the only ones that aren't a flaming train wreck or abusive or...
Well, let's not go that far. It does look like the wives just want another friend.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and then the whole, to go back to Sidian and Sidian the Magician, they, when we were talking to Alexandra about why she's interested, she's like, well, I'm on a road trip with my friends, and we call ourselves sisters, not even friends. And I just like that idea. And I'm like, girl, you can keep your friends. What is with you people? You can have friends that aren't
I don't know. Maybe
banging
we were supposed
husband.
to read a little more into that.
Maybe. I mean, then she definitely doesn't need him, if that's the case. She's got that kind of relationship. Anyway, we have no idea how long this season is. The first season was like 7 episodes. The second was like 12, 14. So we could be getting near the end or not. And we're considering some additional content. We're going to see. We might recap the show that I hosted and tell you about all the background information. It is available on Prime. It's called Knockout, N-O-C-K out, because it's a part of a bow. So we're considering doing that and then going through them. We're considering doing some drink videos, react videos where we just talk about stuff. Or we could, I mean, if you have other ideas. I want to do Marriage Boot Camp, but they don't have a premiere date because my favorite thing in the world is to make fun of couples.
Okay.
Okay, bye.